turned record on today. So, starting out here, division of a decimal by a whole number. When I divide, I'm putting my divisor, which is the one after the division sign, on the outside. So 15.6 divided by 6 with long division is written with the 6 on the outside of my division sign. The decimal is going to go straight up. Now what I'm thinking is I'm saying 6 goes into 1, but 6 doesn't go into 1. And so we go to the next number over and say 6 goes into 15 2 times, right? 6 times 2 is 12. I then subtract. 5 minus 2 is 3, and I bring down that next number. 6 goes into 36 6 times. 6 times 6 is 36. I subtract, I get 0. If I didn't have a remainder of 0, I'd add a 0 on the end and bring that down and keep going until it ended. So in this case, we got 2.6 when we did our long division, right? Since I took up all that space, I'm going to write over here. For the number 2, I'm going to take 8. I'm going to divide it into 2.96. So I'm going to put my decimal straight up above where it is. 8 doesn't go into 2. This is one case where they would put the 0 there, because if there's nothing else in front of the decimal, they're going to put the 0 in front because it looks pretty. Even your calculator does that. So we don't just start with point something. We put 0 point something if there's nothing in front of the decimal. 8 divides into 29 how many times? 3 times. 3 times 8 is 24, and then we subtract. 29 minus 24, 5. You guys are just yelling this all right out. We're going to bring that 6 down, and so now we're going to divide 8 into 56. 8 goes into 56 7 times, all right. And 7 times 8 is 56. My remainder is 0, so I'm done. 0.37. If you put it in as 0.37 on Alex, it'll say it's correct, however, and remind you that that 0 is the best form for your answer. So while I'm moving the board, go ahead and divide 4 into 18.4. And so we came up with an answer of 4.6. See, we didn't even have to use our calculator. I bet most of you did when you took your assessment, though. The next one's when we are dividing with decimals and our divisor is not a whole number, the first thing we need to do is change it into a whole number. So if I have 89.9 divided by 5.8, I'm going to move my decimal over one place here so that I have a nice whole number. If I do that, I also have to move it one place here. I have to move it the same number of places on both numbers. So what I'm going to do is take 899 divided by 58 then. 58, 899, the decimal point is behind that 9. And then I'm going to say, okay, 58 doesn't go into 8, but 58 will go into 89. One time. I get 58 and I subtract, and so I get 31. And then I bring that 9 down. So I'm going to take 58 into 319. Now when you're thinking about this, estimate. Take those front numbers and divide it by this front number. 5 doesn't go into 3, but 5 goes into 31 about 6 times. So I know it's going to be somewhere around 6. 6 is too big, I try 5, and so forth. Instead of trying to find the answer right away, that's what I do, is I just estimate. Well, 5 goes in there 6 times. Let's see if 6 works. 6 times 8, 48. 6 times 5 is 30, plus 4. Whoops, it's too big. So that means it's probably not 6. I probably have to go down to 5, right? 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 5 is 25 plus 4, 29. But that's a quick way to get close to where you know it has to be. And then when I subtract, I get 29, right? Now when I'm working with decimals, if I don't get 0, I'm going to add a 0 and keep going and going and going and going unless it tells me to round. In this case, we know that 58 goes into 290 5 times because we just got that on the previous one, right? Now my remainder is 0, and so my answer is going to be 15.5. So on number 5, if I want to divide 9.86 by 0.85, 85 hundredths, on this one, to make this a whole number, I end up having to move my decimal 2 places over, right? 2 places here, 2 places here. It doesn't always end up that this turns into a whole number, but evidently on this one, it is again. So I'm going to divide 85 into 986, and that decimal is going to be right behind the 6. So 85 goes into 98. It's just one time, all right. 1 times 85 is 85. When I subtract, I get 13, and I bring down my 6. 85 into 136. One time. 1 times 85 is 85, and then when I subtract, I get 51. By the way, if my remainder would be bigger than my divisor, I know I need the next bigger number, but it's smaller than my divisor. I have to keep going, so I'm going to add my 0. 8, how many times? 6 times. 6 times 5 is 30. 6 times 8 is 48, 49, 50, 51. Hey, we get a remainder of 0, and so we know our answer, 11.6. So go ahead and do number 6 there on your paper. Oh, there's one that doesn't turn out to a nice whole number. I have to make the divisor a nice whole number, which means I'm only going to move my decimal 1 place. So 38 into 6.65 is what I'm going to end up doing.
0.
Yep. 38 goes into 66. Just once. 66 minus 38. 28. Bring down my 5. 38 into 285. So 7. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 3 is 21, plus 5 would be 26. And so when I subtract, I get 19. Do here. You get 285 and 266, right? So here you end up having to borrow, because you can't take 6 away from 5. That makes that a 7, and that's a 15. And then we have to keep going, so we add a 0 and say 38 goes into 190. Five times. 5 times 8 is 40. 5 times 3 is 15, plus 4 is 19. And hey, I finally got my remainder of 0. So I get 0.175. for my answer. Now, just like the other day when we had multiplying by a power of 10, when we have dividing by a power of 10, we can take a shortcut. If I'm going to divide by a power of 10, I'm going to move my decimal backwards, the same number of places as zeros as my power of 10 number has. In this case, 10 is 10 to the first. It only has one zero. I'm going to move my decimal back one place. Puts it right in front of the 3, but we know Alex is picky, that they don't want you to start with just a point, so we're going to put the 0 in front of it because it looks pretty. 0.328. So on number 8, 100 is 10 to the second power because it has two zeros. Means I can move my decimal backwards 2 places. 1, 2. Again, it happens to end up right in front of the 6, so they're going to add the 0 in front and say 0.682. So on number 9, how many places to the left can I move my decimal? 3, because 1,000 would be 10 to the third because it has 3 zeros. So if I move it back 3 places, 1, 2, 3, what am I going to have for my answer? 0.00677. Yep, exactly. And then we're to those word problems. Again, I'm pretty sure on the word problems your calculator's active. They're trying to see, do you know what you're supposed to do for operations to solve the problem? It says today, 8 friends went out to lunch. Their total bill was $55.76, including tax and gratuity. Fancy word for tip. They decided to split the bill equally and paid with a $10 bill. Each paid with a $10 bill. How much money will each person get back? A couple different ways you can do this. Any ideas of what way you might want to start? Okay, we could figure out how much each person had to pay, right? Their total bill was $55.76, and we divide it by 8 because they're going to split it equally. I'm going to just write it like this, and I'm going to let you use your calculator there, unless you really want to do it on your paper. 55.76 divided by 8 is 6.97. That means they're each going to pay $6.97. They each paid with a $10 bill. We want to know how much change they're each going to get, so then what are we going to do? You're just busy working. So I'm going to take the $10 they each paid and subtract the $6.97 that they each owe, right? Again, you can do it on your paper or just subtract it on your calculator, whichever way you want. How much will they each get back?
$3.03.
$3.03. It must be lunchtime because today 7 friends went out for lunch again. Their total bill was $39.60, including tax and gratuity. One of them ordered only soda and needed to pay only $2.22. The other 6 friends ordered the same daily special. How much did each of the other friends need to pay? So how should we start this one? We're going to take the $39.60 and subtract the $2.22 that the first person who only had a pop paid, right? So go ahead and subtract that. What do we get? $37.38. The other 6 friends ordered the same special, so we can assume they each paid the same amount. What should we do with their $37.38? Divide it by 6 people, exactly. And so if you go ahead and divide that for me, $6.23. That wasn't too bad for lunch. Elsa just bought a refrigerator for $477. She paid $95.40 in a down payment and will pay the rest in 6 equal installments. How much does she need to pay for each installment? So, what should we do to start? I'm going to subtract off the $95.40 that she had to pay right away for her down payment, right? So $477 minus the $95.40. $381.60. So she still has $381.60 to pay. She's going to pay that off in 6 equal installments. We want to know how much she's going to pay each time. So what should we do with our $381.60? Divided by the 6 equal payments that she's going to make, right? So if you go ahead and divide by 6, you got what? $63.60. These guys are going to holler if they get a different answer. The other day in intermediate algebra, I wrote down the wrong thing and nobody said anything. And then at the end of class, I was looking at stuff and I'm like, we did that problem wrong. And the one said, huh, I was wondering why you wrote that down. I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Sometimes I go crazy. The next one says converting a fraction to a terminating decimal. Terminating decimal means it's going to quit. It's not going to go on and on and on and on forever or start repeating. So what they're really trying to get across is fractions are really division problems. I'm just dividing. I am taking the 54 and I'm dividing it by 25. So that means our decimal's right behind the 54. We know there's going to be a number in front of the decimal because 54 is bigger than 25, right? 25 goes into 54 2 times. 2 times 25 is 50. I bring down my 4 and then I add that 0 and bring it down and take 25 into 40. 25 goes into 40 1 time. 1 times 25 is 25. I then have to subtract, and I get 15. I add my 0 and bring that down, right? 25 goes into 156 times. 6 times 25 is 150. I get a remainder of 0, so 2.16. So if you had your calculator and you took it and put in 54 divided by 25, using the division instead of the fraction, because we want a decimal, it should say 2.16, yep, because it's just a division problem. Whenever you have a fraction, it really means you're dividing. So, 69 divided by 8. Eight goes into 69 8 times, because 8 times 8 is 64. Something about something falling on the floor. Can't remember the rhyme. Then I get a 5 and bring down my 0. 8 goes into 50. 6 times. I better make sure I put my decimal up there. 6 times 8 is 48. I get a 2 and bring down my 0. 8 goes into 20. 2 times. 2 times 8 is 16. I get a 4 and bring down my 0. 8 goes into 40. 5 times. 5 times 8 is 40. I'm done. So, 8.625. Now number 15 is a proper fraction, so we know there's going to be a 0 in front of our decimal. We're dividing 25 into 19, but it doesn't go in there, so we're going to have 0 point something, right? 25 into 190. 7 times, that'd be 175. 190 minus 175. 15. I add my 0. 25 into 150. 6 times. I always think of 25 like quarters because I know about money. How many quarters is $1.75? 0.76 then would be our number as a decimal. Now, in the next ones, I'm not going to make you do all that long division on your paper. We've got the idea. We know fractions are division. So if you just want to divide with your calculator, the next ones are going to be repeating decimals. So when something repeats, you put a bar over it. If it goes 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, 3, you put a bar over just the first 3. You don't have to do 10 threes. If it goes 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, you put a bar over the 1 and the 2. So take your calculator. Do 7 divided by 12, and what shows up on your calculator? 0.58, 333333333, Since this is a 3, your calculator's not going to round it off. But if that was a number that was 5 or higher, it's going to change that end number. Even though it's not really changed, it rounds it up once your calculator ends. So if it was 0.666666, you'd see a 7 at the end because the calculator does that. But we can see that the 3 is repeating, so we write it as 0.583, and the bar is going to go just over the 3 because the 3 is the only thing that's repeating. On LX, you have to click the bar before you type the 3. So you type in 0.58, you click the bar on the tools, and then type the 3 in underneath the bar. You'll get there you'll see it when you get there. So, number 17. What are you going to type in your calculator? 59 divided by 12. Evidently 12 was popular that day I was doing my generator because they all have 12s on the bottom. 59 divided by 12. What shows up on your calculator?
4.916. Then there's a 7 on the end.
Yep, it has that 7 on the end because the calculator rounded it off, but you know it's really 6 repeating. So, I'm going to write that. It's 4.91, and then the 6 has a bar over the top because the 6 is what's repeating. Number 18, 37 twelfths then as a decimal. 37 divided by 12 gives you what?
3.083.
So, 3.083, and the bar's over just the 3. You needed to have a different denominator, so we got something with that might have been crazier. See if I can think of one. No.
If it's 2 numbers that repeat?
If it's 2 numbers that repeat, we'll just make up something. If we had on our calculator 3.0121212 dot 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 like that, we would write it. It would be 3.012, and the bar would go over both the 1 and the 2.
So this one would be 21?
That would be. Because you have 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1.
I thought it was 2.
All right. Converting a mixed number to a terminating decimal. Now, you really don't have to deal with your whole number in front. That's not going to change. If I have 61 and 21/80ths, I'm going to have 61 point something, right? Then I'm going to change that fraction to a decimal. Again, I'm not going to make you do all the long division like they do on Alex. Just use your calculator. 21 divided by 80 is 0.2625. But we're going to put the 61 in front, so we have 2625 behind our 61. So 61.2625. So on number 20, if we're going to write 45 and 29/40ths as a decimal, we know it's going to start 45 point something. 725 then. Because we're going to take 29 divided by 40, which is 0.725, right? Christine, get all this written down. You young kids are way too fast.
Yes.
Not that you're not a young kid, but you know, you're closer to my age than theirs, probably.
Oh, yeah.
70 and 1940 is then. We know it's going to start 70 point something, right?
475.
So 19 divided by 40 gives you 475 behind that 70. 70 and 475 thousandths. Percent. Percent. Per, you don't have that? You don't like them. Percent. Per means out of. A cent is 100, right? There's 100 pennies in a dollar. That's what a cent is. So percent means out of 100. If I am going to change a decimal number into a percent, I'm going to multiply by 100. If I'm going to change a percent into a decimal without the percent sign, I'm going to divide by 100. So as a decimal, think divide. Now we said there's an easy way to multiply and divide by 100 instead of using our calculator. Not that you can't use your calculator, but if I'm going to multiply by 100, I'm going to move my decimal 2 places to the right. So 0.263 as a percent, I'm going to move my decimal 2 places, is 26.3, and I add the percent sign. 26.3%. They will make you click on the percent and put it on your answer. 8.2% as a decimal without the percent sign, I'm going to move my decimal to the left 2 places. 1, 2. I get 0.082, and there's no percent sign anymore. Keep in mind some common ones when you work with percent. 50% as a decimal. What's 50% as a decimal? 0.5. It's a half, right? 25% as a decimal. 0.25. 100% as a decimal.
1.
1, exactly. One whole thing is 100%. Just like having 10 out of 10, you got 100% on your quiz. So if my number is less than 1, over here my decimal number is less than 1, then my percent's going to be less than 100%. If my decimal number is more than 1, it's going to be bigger than 100%. .596 as a percent. I'm going to multiply it by 100, which moves my decimal 2 places, and what am I going to get? 59.6%. Right, 0.93 as a decimal. I'm going to divide by 100, which moves my decimal back 2 places. And so I'm going to get 0.093. It's still correct if you leave the 0 off. It'll just tell you that it should probably be there. So, number 24, 23.4% as a decimal would be, I'm going to divide it by 100, and I'm going to get 0.234, right? And 0.061 as a percentage, 6.1%, exactly. So, percent, always multiplying or dividing by 100, so I'm always just moving my decimal 2 places, either to the right or to the left, depending on what you're doing.
Simply amazing.
Writing a percent as a fraction in simplest form. We said percent means out of 100, right? So to make a percent into a fraction, all we're going to do is put 14 over 100. 14% means I got 14 right out of 100 questions. Now, of course, I want my fraction in simplest form because I always like my fractions in simplest form, so I'm going to reduce it. Divide that by 2 and I would get 7/50ths.
That's your answer?
That's my answer. Exactly. So, 65% as a fraction, I would start by writing it as 65 over 100, and then I'm going to reduce it down so I can divide by 5. 13 over 20. By the way, just for fun, if you took your calculator on this first one and typed in 7 divided by 50, what shows up on your calculator? 0.14, right? 0.14 is what that would be as a decimal. 13 divided by 20. What do you get when you take 13 divided by 20? 0.65, right? 13 divided by 20 should be 0.65. Are we not getting that? You're looking at it. I didn't divide it, so, you know. So, number 27. Writing 22% as a fraction in simplest form, we're going to start by doing 22 over 100, which is 11/50ths. These ones are going to be converting fractions to a percentage with a denominator of 20, 25, or 50. Why do they use those denominators? Because those are all ones that go into 100 nicely. There's a couple different ways you can actually convert a fraction to a percentage, but if I have something that divides into 100 easily, easiest thing to do, just make an equivalent fraction. Well, maybe that's not easier than using your calculator, but we know that a percent means out of 100. 25 goes into 100 4 times. So if I take 4 times my 17 on top, I end up with 68. So that would be 68%. Now another way of changing a fraction into a percent, if you're going to use your calculator, is just to divide. 17 divided by 25 gives you what on your calculator? 0.68. I have to remember that when I change that, it changes it into the decimal, and then I have to still change it to the percent, so I still have to multiply by that 100 to move my decimal over 2 places. If I have 45 over 50, if I'm going to change that to a percent, 50 divides into 100 2 times, and 2 times 45 is 90. So it's 90%. Now on your calculator, if you take 45 divided by 50, you get 0.9, and then we'd have to multiply it by 100, which moves my decimal 2 places, 0.9, 90%. Which way is easier? I don't know. It just depends if you're good at making equivalent fractions. And you can't do this with every fraction, only the ones where your denominator goes into 100 nicely. We'll get to some other ones later, but for now they wanted you to start with some easier ones. 20 goes into 100 5 times. 5 times 13 is 65. So 65% is what I'd get if I got 13 out of 20 on my homework. Alrighty. We got one more page and we'll be done with the review and can start algebra. A lot of you already started algebra, but hey.